tell you what.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Chondro Lounge. This is episode 14, and I'm excited for this one. I am Lucas, joined by Chuck, and we have been your co-hosts for the last 14 episodes. Chuck, I wanted to kind of just jump off before we even talk about like what we're doing for episode 14, but I had messaged you earlier about what we're doing in December. So we had our Patreon Zoom call today for the Reptile Lounge. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of sharing with some of the Reptile Lounge members just like how the last month and a half has been with Elise being down sick and a lot of other stuff that's kind of coming up in my professional life and everything. And kind of flirted with the idea of taking December off for the first time while doing the Reptile Lounge. And Nathan and also the rest of the Patreon member were like fully supporting it. And so then I hit you up. And here we are, and we got this episode, and then we're gonna do one more coming out in 2 weeks, and then we're gonna take December off for the holidays, for family. Well, for you, probably more real estate and more work, but
yeah, that'd be nice to have a little bit of a break.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wanted to share that piece. So the Reptile Lounge network in general is just gonna go incognito the month of December, and we're going to lay low. We're going to take some time off, and then we'll pick right back up at the new year with energy and some awesome guests lined up. And I'm excited for the new year, but why don't we talk a little bit about today's episode, Chuck?
Yeah. We got Kenny Richichi from Island Morelia and Aiden Bradley from SoCal
Beowulfs. Yep.
Beowulfs.
I remembered.
Actually, I got a surprise for you. I have someone who stopped by my house who's going to do their introductions.
No ready? Shit. No shit.
Yep, that's serious. Hold on. Oh, you're not ready? All right, give him 1 second. Keep on rolling, Phil.
That's why we can cut these things out.
You're not going to want to cut this out, I promise.
No, I meant just the buffer time. You got a talking chondro?
No. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready. I've been ready.
How you doing this evening, Lucas?
I'm doing
great.
Got
Kenny. We got Aiden. Great guys. A lot of people say they're great guys. I think they're great guys. They're young, spunky, breeding green trees. I believe they're 20 and 25. What's that add up to? 45. Not a coincidence. It's totally meant to happen. Very important. Get out and vote tomorrow. If you don't, we won't have a country left.
That was fucking phenomenal. That was the best surprise I've ever had on a podcast in my life. Thank you so much for that, President Trump.
Have a good evening. Love you all. God bless you. Don't vote for Cricket Kamala.
While he's getting that costume off, man, that was freaking amazing. Let me just remind you guys about our sponsorship with Cold Blooded Cafe. Guys, if you guys are looking for rodents to feed your chondros, I know a lot of us here in Texas and the Texas chondro breeders that are over here use Cold Blooded Cafe, as well as thousands of people all over the country. Use Reptile Lounge 20 for 20% off on your order. And let them know that we sent you. Des, Chris, the team over there, thank you guys so much for what you do. I don't think I could have said it better than Trump myself, but when it comes to our episode today, we're going to be talking to two very young breeders and people that have been mentored for a long time by some phenomenal keepers and breeders. And I'm just excited to get their perspective, their fresh mind. Chuck, I know that you like inventing and creating shit, right? And you're always trying to push the envelope and do things that are unnecessary just to do them. And I'm wondering what the younger generation of breeders are. By the way, that was like a slide joke right there. I hope you don't think that's my view of you.
I gotta put these fucking headphones in. Sorry.
But yeah, I think this is going to be a great episode. Chuck, you got anything else before we bring them on?
Nah. I think my guest said it all.
Guys, I messaged Chuck. I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna have you do the intro and like introduce them this week," and he's like, "Oh, I got you. Well, that was great. All right, let's get them on. Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry.
They're both both of their ages next year, 47, meant to be.
No, that was good.
Yeah, that was funny.
Got me laughing back there.
Oh man. Fellas, what's going on?
What's up?
Everything's good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Doing good.
Good, getting over being sick.
Did
Same,
you guys,
I would say a couple weeks ago too.
did either of you talk to Chuck on the phone a couple days ago prior to us like agreeing with all this? I talked to him. I called him on the phone. He's like, "You guys think my voice is okay for the podcast?" And I'm like, "Dude, you sound great. It's gonna be fine." Like,
Sound like Robbie
I hadn't
Kennedy.
heard from him. No, we never spoke to anyone prior other than just messaging till now.
Yeah, same.
awesome.
Actually, I was on the other podcast with Chuck, with Travis and Keno
Yeah, Chondro Bar.
a while ago.
Yeah, and I think I've followed both of your accounts. I've been following the work that you guys have been doing. Again, like just seeing both of your faces, right, and like seeing your handles and all that stuff. Like it's like, oh, okay, finally, like I get to
Yeah.
connect, the face to the name and the Instagram account, and so yeah, I don't care who goes first really right now, Kenny or Aiden, but if you want, just go ahead and give yourself like a little introduction, and who you are, what your, I guess your spice of what you're doing in the reptile community and how that all kind of got started for you guys, in regards to like your interest in reptiles.
You want me to go first, Aiden? Or
Yeah, sure, you go.
All right. So I'm Kenny Richichi. I'm 25 from Long Island. I got started keeping reptiles at about 7. Started with like just a normal ball python. I got at a reptile store that actually Jimmy Gorman owned out here. And from there, it really took off. Eventually got first chondro at 10. Somehow I got really lucky with that situation. And from there, just really read up as much as I could until I got older. Went to reptile shows at about 12. I met Vin Russo, who I'm apprenticing under now. I was a chubby little kid with glasses, went up to him just asking in super high-pitched voice whatever questions I could about breeding chondros and like what he had at the time of like 11 or 12. I was way too broke to afford an OS or anything, so wasn't exactly in my collection at the time. And I eventually started working at a reptile store, Repzotica, out in Long Island as well, at about 14, just like volunteering and helping from there. So from about 14 to 17 I did that, and then I started under Vin at about 16, 17. I kept doing both, so gave me a lot of experience with like different species that most people wouldn't get to work with. And that definitely helps in translation with like chondros and a few other miscellaneous things I keep here. Kind of used to keep a lot and narrowed it down to just the chondros and a few odds and ends here and there.
Are you open to sharing what the few other odds and ends are? Because I kind of went the opposite approach with you. As I started off with a very narrow focus with locality retics since that I'm kind of in this experiment phase where I'm getting a lot of other species and having a great time with, just bringing other things in. So I'm curious what other species you currently have.
It's relieving because you don't really put as much pressure on those species when you first get them, and you just get to enjoy them at first. You're not really trying to breed, and
right.
Nothing. There's no weight on your shoulders yet. So I have some jungle carpet pythons, Darwins. All these are from Vin Russo, and I actually got a pair of jungles from Gary.
That clutch was stellar.
Yeah, no, they're turning out super nice. Very different from the jungles I have. They're more of that, like, just straight on black and yellow look. The others I have are a much more classic, old school look.
Yeah.
I have my T positive children's python project. I've been working with that for a while.
Nice.
Cordensis, Biak Island tree monitors. Those I really enjoy.
Hell yeah.
Can't do a lot of monitors because they take up such a large amount of space for me. And for me, the focus is really just chondros primarily. Right. I'm trying to think. A few blood boas from Vin. Trying to think. That's pretty much it. It's like I have some tarantulas in the room, some other little weird stuff.
He ends
absolutely not.
He ends with just a few blood blowers, like they're nothing, right? Like,
and then he said big ass spiders, and I was out. I stopped listening. I got to sleep tonight, bro.
Nothing massive. Like I was like, I get impulsive at Tinley once in a while when me and Vin go, and I'm like, I'm not gonna bring home snakes. Really, I'm like, I always like tarantulas. So I'm like, I have Goody. Ornamental and few baboons, and that's about it. Not a lot.
Chuck's face right now is priceless.
Which rifle am I sleeping with that night? It gets out.
No, I don't touch them. I'm gonna be nothing I have I touch in terms of that. So that's
I would super glue the lid shut, and I would just leave them in there.
Yeah,
you're on your own, buddy.
I question my thoughts with like a few of them. Like, yeah, this wasn't the best idea. This thing's a little fucking whack,
dicey,
bro. They're not.
Yeah.
I'm not super. Look, I did the Trump there. I'm not like super. I'm not super scared of them when they're like crawling around. But the videos of them like running, dude. There's so many words that I could say that would immediately get this video canceled. Absolutely not, bro. I can't do it, man. I get freaked out.
Dude, it's not fun. Like, luckily, I've only had it once, so that's why I really never increased the amount I had. It was just like 4 or 5 in the room, and that was it. It was just, luckily, I kept it at that, and I didn't keep going. So
they're so fast, bro. Those videos, I'm like, woo.
I had one get like halfway up the wall right away, and I had to grab one of the totes I'd use for like a chondro or something if I'm just cleaning, whatever it might be. I'm like, I had to throw it against the wall. I'm like, I never again messed around with like moving one, cleaning.
Yeah, no. I'm starting to get like, again, like the Patreon that I have with the Retic Lounge, there's a lot of people that keep them and everything. So seeing pictures of them, watching the videos and everything, it's cool. I'll see them at a show. I'll be like, yeah, that one's pretty, but not for me, man. Not for me.
I just started liking jumping spiders, and I was like holding one the other day. I'm like, dude, I've never like willingly had a spider on me. No, and I'm like playing with the little like jumping spiders. I'm like, maybe one of those jewel tarantulas, the ones that are like 2Gs that are real pretty.
Yeah, yeah.
Are those the ones that are also like really hurt if they bite you though?
I think they're bad. I don't think so. Like the worst ones are like all the ornamentals, like the Postletharia. Yeah, those are bad, and then you go to the baboons and some of them. But I think those are fine.
So you jumped into just the bads, Like,
Yeah, nothing. I was like, all the stuff I liked that looked, it just all worked out to be mean. So I never touch it.
oh man.
I thought it was cool though. Like some of them, like you get reared up, but yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you mean? Like when they get up and try to mess
No,
you
we're not.
up?
No, don't ask that
Yeah.
question. We're not going into this. We're not going into
No,
tarantula
I need to
behavior right
sleep
now.
tonight.
Yeah, no.
We're not going into there. Kenny, I got a couple other questions in the back of my mind I'm going to plug right now, but I want to give Aiden the floor. Just give him that opportunity to introduce himself, and hopefully he doesn't keep spiders.
I actually saw a tarantula yesterday in the mountains just on a hike, and I picked him up. He was actually super chill. But
What is
I don't-
wrong
I
with you
don't-
guys? Oh my God, my skin's crawling.
Nah, he finds some cool stuff on. Like I look at the pictures you'll post. I'm like, no, he finds some cool stuff when he goes out there.
yeah. My name's Aiden Bradley, and I'm 20, and I live in Orange County, California. And I've been keeping reptiles since I was probably like 4 or 5, and my dad and his whole family kept reptiles, and so I kind of got into it like that. But I just kept like normal ball pythons, bearded dragons. I had a couple of monitor species, but up until like 2018, I didn't have anything like that special. I got some Dumerals monitors. I still keep and breed those, but I didn't get my first Chondros till 2022,
Okay.
and yeah, I've read them a few times since then. But yeah, pretty fresh into Chondros. But yeah,
Fresh into
Go ahead.
chondros, just went ahead to jump into breeding them and had some success. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slaying it with what, 3 clutches your first year?
yeah, the
Killer.
third
Jeez.
one kind of was weird. Not a lot of the babies made it, but yeah, the first 2 were great.
So right now you're keeping chondros. You keep anything else?
Yeah, I have a
Or
few
you
other
mentioned the
things.
monitors?
Yeah, Dumerals monitors.
Okay.
I have
Monitors
some
are up there for me.
leaf-tailed geckos I recently got. I have a couple box turtles, some Arizona mountain king snakes, and I think that's it.
Okay. Nice little variety.
Nice. Question for you both. If you want to go and start first, so I guess I explained to Lucas. You guys have and you got your Uncle Ed, Kenny. You'd mentioned Vin. If you could both just go into like
Hold on. Who's Uncle Ed?
My uncle Ed Bradley.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's been breeding them since the early 90s.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had to connect the last name in my head. I'm caught up now. Thank you.
So basically, I mean, both of your mentors are just like these old oak trees in the green tree community. You guys are acorns just fell on the ground, but you're blossoming, right? So
Yeah.
explain to me, if it's kind of a longer question, but explain to me what you've learned from your mentors and then how you've applied it into like modern keeping, because we have so many different pieces of equipment now that are different, and different feeding techniques, keeping techniques, whatever. Something that you took that you from them that you still use today, that's basically like juggernaut to all this new shit coming in, like all these changes and stuff. Like, what's one thing you picked up from your mentor that you don't think you will ever change?
It's a good question.
I'm sorry, it's tough. It's tough.
I still use a bunch of old stuff, like all this caging behind me, and they have old Helix thermostats and stuff.
You still rolling with the Helix? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find one just for my
They
incubator.
work great. I've never had issues with them. They're probably 25 years old.
That's wild.
Shit, that's
Yeah.
funny because Kenny has exposure to Helix because he's so close to Gary. And Gary still uses it, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe so. I have a few of them here. I know. I think though that Gary probably definitely has a few of them.
If you guys have any laying around, you want to send me one, I'll throw you whatever you guys want. I've been looking for one. I can't find him.
My uncle might have some. I can ask him.
Okay.
Yeah, no, those are hard to come by now.
Yeah, no, they're a dime a dozen, and I want something that doesn't freaking beep every 2 seconds.
What about
Yeah.
you, Kenny? What kind of piece of equipment or what sort of like technique has been, showed you, taught you that you just found that like just works, man? And there's no way that right now you could think about changing that and what the way you're doing
Seasonality would probably be it. Keeping seasonally.
it. Cycling wise.
Yeah, so that would, to summarize it, yeah, like I kind of mimicked a lot of what Vin does, like almost 100% behind it. But if I had to pick one thing, would be cycling seasonally, and just in terms of feeding, keeping all aspects.
Now, when you say seasonally, are you talking about a room that is ambiently affected by the outside temperatures, and that's when you decide to breed, or is it are you using still supplemental heat, but then just using the season to your advantage and dropping your temps?
So it kind of goes hand in hand. For me, luckily, I live on the East Coast out in New York, so it gets cooler at the perfect time, right around October, November. And right around those times is when I would start to drop temps. But in terms of seasonally keeping, it's everything from, oh, sorry, I'm going to go back to the room. The room isn't kept at an ambient temperature. It fluctuates a little bit. In the summer, it definitely gets a little warmer. Winter, it definitely gets a bit colder. It's in my house, so it's not like a separate facility or whatnot. But yeah, for me seasonally keeping would go down to, I have the time set where they're on their feeding window, they're off food, and I'm attempting to breed them, and that coincides with the weather here though as well. So summertime they're kicking. It's most humid in the house as well, and where they would be. Dry season would be winter, where it's a little cooler and less rain and humidity.
Now, Kenny, those animals, are they in a room that has ambient light from the outside?
There is a window in that room, yes, that has access to outside.
Okay. And then you do have supplemental heat, you said, into the cages, right?
Yeah, I use radiant heat panels. I'm gradually going away from it with like adding cages, and as time goes on, I'm getting away from them. I like them, but I prefer like going behind what Vin would do is under the tank heating, so it emits that humidity and heat. And when it comes to breeding season, those females will get an additional heat. Small bulb, just like even Rico did back in the 2000s for them to bask.
Keep on going into that, yeah, if you don't mind, because it's a very different type of keeping. So this is, I think, any episode that you're on, the way you're keeping or Vin's keeping, people are going to hear it from you guys. So if you can explain like the under tank thing, is that thermostatically controlled? Like what is it set at?
Yeah, so you'd set heat tape on the like below the like whether it be a row of cages or whatever, however you set your stuff up. You set that up to a thermostat just like you would a snake rack, and set it in like the probably mid 80s, upper 80s. You're gonna have to adjust it, and if that room isn't isolated, it's gonna be very difficult to do. It's really something that you wouldn't be able to do in like someone's personal bedroom where you have like an air conditioner or whatever it may be. The reason being is when you do that, you're going to get humidity emitting from the floor. Like when we use wee pads, we soak those down. So when you have heating element below that, it's going to emit that humidity. And naturally, the floor is going to absorb the heat in the jungle and emit it at night. The problem with the heat panels is if you don't have a warm room as is and they're kicking on a lot, they're going to dry out the enclosure and the snake. Like if you put a temp gun below those things when they're really kicking to get temps up, it's hot. And if a snake's below that, it's going to dry them out. Like you could spray the perch, and that's the first thing that cooks out once the tank gets to temp. So I'm trying to gradually go away from that because with me and even Vin, chondros are very dependent on humidity. If you dry them out, there's quite a bit of repercussions for it.
Right. Now, Aiden, going back to you and some of the techniques or equipment or things you're using, the hot ticket item nowadays for neonates is 3D printed perches, right? Like they're flashy, they're sexy, any color you want. You don't use that. Your racks are from Uncle Ed, and they're amazing. And you're using. Please run us through the containers that you're using, and then also the unsexy perches you're using that work great.
I like him. I see him right behind him.
I do. His shit. I want his setup.
You talking about these ones or
the ones with the hangers? And the containers are very specific. They're very. I don't know what they are.
So I don't know if you guys remember like the old Critter Keeper, like like a little plastic top Critter Keeper cages. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like people put crickets in them and stuff. I think.
Lucas, we have a 20-year-old asking us. Do you guys remember this?
Dude, right? This is wild right now.
I don't remember, but my uncle had like.
You're talking about with like the black clip-ons that like have the flip that you can open them up. Yeah. Okay, I know.
So
those yeah. I know.
They have like the mesh. It's not like
and they
mesh,
have the little door that clicks over and up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So they're those, and there's 3 different sizes I have. I think. Yeah, there's 3 different sizes, and he had the legs milled off so they slide in and out easily, and then he just built the racks around those. But yeah, and the perches for the small tubs are just hangers. Like I don't know what he did, but they're like they fit perfect in the tubs. Kind of modified them a little bit, and then these ones, I don't know what the perches are made out of, but they were good. Some kind of plastic.
Yeah,
what's your heating in those?
It's belly heated with like heat tape, both of them.
And so belly heat, in my personal opinion, is a little bit. I was always uncertain using it because I always had the option to make them putting my heat on the back.
Yeah.
Have you seen any sort of negative effects from using belly heat or any issues whatsoever? Because it's not a common practice in keeping green tree python neonates because most of these breeders now are using back heat because they're all ordering new racks because it's just been such an explosion of popularity.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'll even say real quick before you answer that, like even when I was getting into like really starting to want to, you know, I'd been wanting chondros for over a decade and then finally was like, all right, let me go into this. One of the biggest things that gave me anxiety was this idea of back heat tape that everyone was using because I was so used to using heat tape on the bottom of enclosures and racks. And so the idea of using back, I'm like, well, how do you temp, like, you know, for now it's all common sense. You just temp the perch closer to the heat, further from the heat for the gradient, but it wasn't connecting for me at first. But yeah, I'm curious, how does the belly heat work for you, Aiden?
It works great. I've never had any problems with it. The only thing that it's not good is like if a chondro does go on the ground, which is rare for a neonate to do, they can get too warm sometimes, I guess, if the room gets too cold. But that's very rare. I've never had a issue with it.
Yeah. And what do you generally, I guess, have you measured the floor temperature with a temp gun?
Yeah.
And
so
what's that? What are you shooting for?
Usually it's like 90 when the room is like 75, 76 in here.
Okay.
And since the chondros don't really go on the ground, they're usually like 84 at the perch temp.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that on the bottom of the entire tub or just like in the back section?
No, yeah, it's just like maybe a 1-inch strip in the back.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you guys are working with some pretty older bloodlines, I'd imagine. Kenny, you got some really nice artifact stuff, and you know, Aiden, you're working with some of your, you know, your uncle's stuff from back in the day, and some real good like animals that are in lineages or siblings with lineaged animals. What's your aim, your goal? Like, what do you want to work with that you have now? Not necessarily your dreams or what you look forward to. What do you have now that you want to refine? Like, what's your goal with what you're working with now? Aiden, I'm sorry, Kenny, you go first.
Mainly with me, I really want to work with the artifact stuff I already have. I started producing the artifact Beox. I have some pure artifacts. I also have some other stuff like just added a calico male here that I plan on breeding. So I'm going to incorporate the artifact stuff with some of the calicos. And I'm also going to try to make my own line using RFAC primarily, outcrossing it to other localities that are already here, stuff I'm doing now. It's mainly about just preserving some of the pure locales I have and then making some really wicked stuff using the RFACs. I got lucky with the first generation of the RFAC BX, turning out pretty nice so far. There wasn't a lot of them, but I'm repeating that again, so I'm going to really get a good sample basis off of that and start to get work off of that and make some other stuff.
Nice. What about you, Aiden?
So mostly Biox stuff for my uncle's lines. And Rico hatched the mom of a couple of my Biox. But yeah, Biox stuff, some of the Highland stuff like the Garrick's working with, like Kronos and stuff, and Siren.
Do you have Wamina?
Yeah, I have a sibling nephew to Kronos.
I'm sorry.
And
Did we lose him for a second, or was that me?
Yeah, we did. He's back though.
Okay. Repeat what you just said. I'm sorry. The answer, we lost you for like a second.
Can you hear me good now?
Yes.
Shoot, it's giving me a notification. Still here? My bad.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so I have a sibling to Kronos from a later clutch. But he's a Wamena Manakori. I'm not sure if you guys know that. So his dad was a Wamena import. But
When we were talking to him, I remember him saying that Kronos was it was just two localities taken together.
Yeah, it's a Wamena Manakori.
Yeah, that's nuts.
And then I have a nephew to Kronos that James Opdahl produced. And then I got one from Garrick that's I guess a half sibling to Kronos. So I got a few.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's what you just want to refine, just basically carry on your Uncle Ed's legacy and some of the stuff he kind of created and see what you could do with it, put your own spin on it.
Yeah, probably the pure Jayapura stuff too. I'll probably try to keep that going.
Yeah. I think I reached out to you. I was like, you gotta, that red giant looks terrible. You sent it to me.
Speaking of sending people snakes, can you give us an update on your chondro real quick? I'm sorry to get off topic, but Chuck, I want to know how your sutured up chondro's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's it took I gave it what did I give it? I gave it a large mouse tail the other day, and it immediately started swallowing it right in its mouth. And you feed them big side first, so I was a little bit nervous, but went right past it, swallowed it, perched perfect. So
Crazy.
The glue is on the edges of the wound, beyond the wound where I kind of over poured it, or peeling off a little bit, which is good. So hopefully it starts to just work itself off like a scab. Definitely a little bit of restricted movement, like if it were to wrap. So I'm just going to keep on popping tails in its mouth, and then I'll work it up to some real thin gizzards. I just bought a pound of gizzards, so I'll be chopping them up and cutting them appropriately. But doing good.
Again? I heard a little bit of it. I know it was assist feeding, right? But
I'm an idiot.
How exactly did that happen?
I'm an idiot is what happened, and I live with I live with my wife and two exact copies of her that are a little bit smaller and have a little bit more attitude. I was just overloaded that day and rushed and went to go assist feed a pinky to an animal, and it when I pushed it in, it popped, and the tongs just slid and shot out the side of the neck.
Okay.
It was just, I'm an idiot. Like, I have rat's tails, I have chicken gizzards, I got mouse legs I could chop off.
You need crested geckos.
Yeah.
That's why you do crested. You ain't got to touch them.
I just don't feel like breeding anything else. I got my kids two ball pythons ruining the community, and these friggin' things. I got to deal with ball pythons. I don't want nothing else to take care of.
Hold up. Let me. You mentioned crested geckos. Kenny, are you doing any crested gecko feeding?
He's the crested gecko guy. He's where MJ got the idea.
Yeah. No.
Oh, I had no clue.
Yeah, no. The first crested got fed off was at my house.
Oh, geez. Okay.
That whole thing originally came from Vin with leopard geckos in the 2000s. And at the time, he bred leopard geckos, and you got to think chondros want lizards. They're not really eating anything else. They're not getting rodents or going after a nest or getting birds at that age. Um, so at the time, I had the cresty geckos, and that's the one thing that I had that doesn't eat any insects or anything that would contaminate it. So me and Vin figured we'll just throw in the crested. I felt bad about it at first. I was like, I'll set a timer for 5 minutes. If it's not gone in 5 minutes, I'll pull it out. Because I tried everything with this one snake. I went in maybe 30 seconds later because I forgot my phone. It already had it. So ever since then, we just kept trying it. Anytime you throw a crested in it eats it. I've never had one not.
That's wild.
He walked into his reptile room, just picked a pet, said, all right, I'll give you 30
I
seconds
had
in
so
there.
many of them. Like, I got to give them away at that point. I'm like, all right, you guys are getting sacrificed. There's more of them in the U.S. than probably New Caledonia. So
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was like Gladiator. He was like,
yeah, I'm like,
thumbs down.
yeah, they work well. Like, if you don't mind, you don't need a big cage. Like, I use a 66 quart bin, and then you'll put a trio together, and at that point, I'll collect up to like 18 eggs every year from them.
Jeez.
And you shouldn't need that many crusteds. Like, I always end up having a ton of extras that I have to give away or whatever it may be.
And is that just
I'll send you my address.
I'll freeze them a few of them off next time.
Seriously, I got a couple of them that are being dicks upstairs. I need something. I've been trying to find.
Is that just like, is the crested gecko just for problem feeders, or are you just establishing them if you have the availability?
That's for problem feeders. Like, I try to avoid not doing it. I always like getting a live, like, the one thing I always want to get a live meal in chondros. I want good bacteria in their system. I don't want dead bacteria. So if they won't take like a live pink or something like that, then I'll go over to the crusteds. 9 times out of 10, they take a live pink. But
That's interesting. I do believe there's something with the establishing good gut flora in the newer neos with an animal that's alive that has active bacteria in its body.
yeah, because if you take a live pinky, it was just suckling on its mother who has her own bacteria and whatnot in her system. So that'll pass on to that animal, and you need it in your gut. Even if you puke and you go through a cleanse, you then need to get good bacteria and whatnot in your system. So I figure the same thing would apply with chondros or anything else for that matter.
Right. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I'm bought and sold in, right? I mean, it's definitely going to be something where I start shopping and looking for it if I ever get the opportunity to have to go through that. But, I'm curious, or I'm sorry, Chuck, you had asked a question. Kenny started this off, and I'm already goldfish brain.
What I ask him? I don't know.
That's a good question.
I goldfish brained it too. I got
Jeez,
lost.
we got jumped into crested geckos.
Yeah, we did.
Lucas has know where he is. No idea.
That one animal you had that you had a problem with the
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's where the crusty gecko thing popped up.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we were talking about what you guys are wanting to work with and where you want to take your projects. That was where we left off. But so I'm curious for both of you when it comes to like the mentorship that you guys received. We talked a little bit about like the one thing, right, that you guys, Aiden, you talked about like having some of the cages in the old style of like, housing them and how you're doing that. And Kenny, you talked about seasonality being a really important factor. Is there anything that you guys are doing that are completely like off base or like just, they did it this way and you guys just kind of found a completely different way that works?
Yeah. Ed keeps his room fully ambient. And I run AC in the summer and a heater in the winter and kind of keep it in a stable range.
What is your ambient?
So normally in the summertime it's like 78 in the daytime and like 76 at night in summer. And then in winter it'll get down to like 72 in here at night but it's still like 75 in the day.
All sounds like good temps. Obviously, it's working.
For me, I would say the one thing that I don't do, I use radiant heat panels. That's the one thing that Vin doesn't do that I do. That's like remnants from having to keep them in a bedroom and in a house for that matter. But luckily, they work well for me because the room is warmer being filled with so many animals. It's the reptile room. So luckily, those heat panels aren't kicking on a lot where it's problematic. But I am gradually switching some things over. Yeah, that would be really the only thing I go against that he does and I don't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And you even talked about earlier the idea of kind of moving away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely prefer to completely go to under the tank heating for whatever additional heat was needed. Just like you got to figure, almost like a snake rack, just on a bigger scale. Use under tank heating, just like Aiden does in my racks with neonates. If the room isn't too cool, don't really have a problem with it. But with cold rooms, it becomes problematic. And the only additional heat that I would do to that would be for females in breeding season that have follicles and are breeding at that time.
It's funny how we do so many different. And I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. That was pretty much the end of it.
Yeah, it's funny how we keep different because my room is pinned at 70 to 71 all year round, and my animals have a night drop every single day. So it's 12 heat, 12 hours of 84 at the hotspot, 12 hours of 77, 78 the hotspot. And my females cycle multiple times a year, and I've had an ovulation every single 3 different seasons so far. My 3 ovulations have been in different season every single I
actually tried to cycle my recent clutch. I cycled her in the opposite time of year than I usually do, and it worked out somehow.
Yeah, I just read them. You could see them acting differently around every 4 months ish. It's like every 3 times a year is when my females will produce egg follicles.
That's why I end up keeping seasonally. I mean, everyone goes like almost to the month the same time every year. So I feel like that real stuff really pops up from at certain times of the year. She might be warmer in your house. She might be feeling a little more humid, or your house might be drier. So I think that's where they get signaled to start producing follicles. And when it just that's why it might pop up randomly as well for some people. I mean, with a lot of my girls, I think I was just checking the cards today. The most fluctuation they'll go like within a month or two off of the year prior, but usually it's still around like to a T the same time every year.
Some people have claimed the same day.
Yeah,
the same week.
We've had it like at Vin's. We've seen some females with other stuff, or even chondros. Like they've done it where it's like to a T. She just ended up laying a clutch the same day each year.
I bred ball pythons, and I bred her 3 times, and she laid within a day for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I think no matter what your actual husbandry techniques are, as long as you stay consistent with, I think the animals get into really a cycle or a rhythm.
Yeah.
Right. I'm curious for both of you when it came to like you guys, with the mentors that you guys have had, when at what point, like, did you guys go from like just being someone who's cleaning to someone who actually starts observing, the breeding aspect of things, or just kind of like starting to have that mindset, or maybe getting involved in the breeding aspect?
You want to go first, Aiden?
Sure. So I actually never you mean like cleaning and watching the breeding at Ed's house?
Yeah, I mean, or at what point did you? Because I know that you said you started earlier, right? Or you started in 2022, so something later. So I guess like what role and like, how much communication did you have with him on how to do things and all that good stuff?
Yeah. So I honestly don't see Ed that often, but I was researching chondros a lot for like 6 months before I got some, and I knew Ed kept them. Obviously, I didn't know like to what extent, but I never like been at Ed's house and like watched breeding happen or like clean cages over there, nothing. But I've definitely bugged him a fair amount with questions. But when I first picked up the first few I got from him, he kind of explained everything pretty simple, and like I got to see everything how he kept them in his room. So it was honestly pretty simple.
Just kind of like a plug and play approach.
Yeah, basically I got his cages and the snakes that were in those cages, so it was pretty much just moving them a little bit.
Maybe just breeding chondros runs in the blood with you guys. Just it comes easy.
Obviously does. He gave it a shot and had 3 clutches.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Ed's snakes seem to like to breed. I don't know what it is. Garrick's had a lot of success with them too.
Man. How about you, Kenny?
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't start apprenticing under Vin for quite a while. That was really the first apprenticeship I had, where that was what I was there to do, and I was there to study. That started almost right away once he went over the ropes of how he likes certain things cleaned and how to go about just being at his facility. Within that year, I got to see him breed and how he would cycle and just care for animals. That started at about 16, 17, and then I started with Chondros in 09. So it was a good gap before I got to apprentice under him. It was just at the reptile store prior to that, and there really wasn't any snake people there to take note under, so I got a lot of time to freelance with a ton of different species, just feeding techniques and whatnot.
Okay. So hold on. You said your first chondro you got in 09?
Yeah, I was 10 years old.
Yeah, holy
2009. Yeah, it was an
That's crazy.
OS line to a Sarong Lara. So it was an OS from Vin that
Jeez.
was bred to a Sarong Lara. And then once I got that animal, I ended up with a wild caught female Jayapura 2 years later, and she was a subadult. So I got the first clutch of chondros I had in 2014. They were slogs, and the next year
So at 15 years old.
14 was I was 14. Ooh, yeah, I was 15 years old when I hatched my first viable clutch. I was 14.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I might
Jesus.
have been 14 when I hatched my first clutch. It was 2015. Yeah, it was 15 when I hatched my first clutch. I had 14. I had a clutch of slugs. There were no.
I'm gonna start pairing my ruse now, and like every night before bed, I'm just gonna. If a 15-year-old could do it, I could do it. If a 15-year-old did it, I can do it.
Just, I mean, luckily I wasn't.
It's nuts.
It was unintentional, but it almost went back to literally keeping them seasonally. Luck being on the East Coast, the room is warm. I have a dry season and a wet season, so they would get fed and kind of plow through food much faster in that spring and summer. And then it dried out in my room, and they were signaled like, we're not going to eat. We're going to start going at it. And I got lucky. I wasn't intentionally really trying to do it the first year.
Right.
The second year, I aimed at it more, and then I mainly made mistakes with the clutch and incubation.
Okay.
I think they're the only 2 guys in the community that could honestly say they couldn't legally walk into a liquor store and buy a single beer. However, they could have bought every single bottle in that store with the
Right.
babies that they made before they were 21.
Yeah, I got
Holy
lucky.
shit.
I bred the leaf-tail geckos, and like I started in like 8th grade, and I actually made good money off those. So I would go buy chondros with the money I made from them.
Jesus.
Because I would be like 13, and I could charge $900 on Facebook for a pair of Satanics at the time.
8th grade, I was hustling pogs.
I was hustling leaf-tail geckos and like cheap-ass ball pythons, like pastels and little stuff. But
Holy shit, man.
yeah.
You're on the right course.
Jeez. That's
yeah,
freaking nuts.
I got lucky. I didn't really start trying to refine things until I got a little older, but I started right from there was when it really kicked in, where all right, we're breeding nothing but.
I mean, if you're breeding your first clutch of chondros by accident and you're a teenager at the point in time, like I'm not thinking of refining. I'm like, oh, well, just do this. And, if I'm selling snakes for 1K a pop or more. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I had horrible cages and everything. That was really where the refining needed to come from. They were in like
Is it
Exoterras at the time. Then I
so you
went over
can
to
breed them in exoterras? That's not a message that we wanted.
no, I mean snakes. Do
Yeah,
way
you can.
They,
Keith
you
Flax
can.
does it, and
And
you
Mark
can do
Hager
it.
keeps them in them.
I think like a lot of those. I know. I think Keith is in Florida, and
Mhm.
if I'm correct, Mark's Texas, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, people
Yeah,
do it
I mean,
successfully.
Oh
I
yeah,
think you
yeah,
can
yeah.
do it. Like even Rico had stuff in glass cages. You could do it as long as like that room or whatnot, and you're not kind of cranking heat on them and drying them out. You're fine.
Exactly. Yeah, no, no. I mean, I got my setup right now. I have a humidifier, dehumidifier set up. I could literally keep them with. I mean, I could literally build a screen in my garage, and they're going to have the temperature and humidity that they need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I keep them humid. I mean, where they come from, they never go below 75
Right.
or so. So
Yeah.
crank that shit. Crank
You
that.
watch a lot of Dan Malari videos.
No, no,
I
that was
do.
I've watched Dan's stuff and I like it. Like you get to actually see some of the habitat. You got. I mean, we've all seen it's soaking wet. It's not dry. So, I mean, for us to ignore humidity and a number of those things is kind of insane. I think it's one of those things we need to work on.
I think it's the battle that trying to replicate that in captivity for some folks.
With stale air.
Yeah, they don't understand that humidity doesn't mean wet. Humidity is the evaporation of water and literally the transfer of water turning into a gas and then evaporating and having that airflow, because stagnant wet is just nasty. So
Yeah,
like you having a brain in your head and us talking in an educated setting, we understand that. But some people be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna soak it down and seal it up.
yeah, I've seen some people, they'll keep it in like a closet. There's no airflow.
Oh my
The
god, bro.
ventilation's horrible. I mean, I have a fan kicking on in that room just to circulate everything whenever I can. The time of year, windows getting opened, but yeah, a lot of that's it's common sense. But I forget when we go on the forum, you see some stuff, and it's okay. All right, we got to go back to common sense here sometimes.
Yeah, those are the people that go to like a book club meeting and all they did was like read the front cover and the back cover and think they know the book.
Yeah, that's a
Right,
lot
yeah.
of what happens, unfortunately. Like
Yeah.
at first, I mean, if you go into it's, you need to have animals for a while before you can say you know them, and then whatnot.
In my first career, I call those people Facebook lawyers.
Oh yeah, that's probably good. Oh, they act like it. You act like some people-
sure
yeah,
do.
Yeah, I don't say.
They
much
say all the
on
right
there.
things.
Yeah, I don't say much on there. I try to avoid it.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice though. Most things are pretty good on the forums, but you get here and there.
Yeah.
But comes
I
with
mean-
all the groups.
Half the stuff I'm looking at now, like if I'm looking for answers of questions, right? Like my first source is still to go to Google and find the old forums. And I really do enjoy. So I've nerded and geeked out a lot about like the care and husbandry aspect of these snakes. And even today, when I'm in that mood and I do that, I'll go back to like 2008 and see what people are posting in 2008 on the forums, and then just progressively keep going through time and see like what's changed, what are people doing. And for me, I think that the two biggest things that continue to pop up is the difference between temperature and humidity. I do see a wave of people saying, and a lot of people are saying, like, you don't need to spray them all the time. It doesn't need to be soaking wet and all this stuff. But I also agree with you, Kenny, in the sense that like humidity is a massive factor in their seasonality in the wild. And if you want your females to cycle very easily and like just nonchalantly, keeping seasonally is a great way to do that without having to like super pound your animals with food or anything.
Yeah, I think without that, I mean, there's a lot of repercussions that you could visibly see when people post some animals. It's like, all right, you can tell when some animals are dried out, and when they really lack that humidity, they're not going to digest food properly, and then you keep going down that line, and it starts to backfire. You can even see it on their scales. Like I've gotten some snakes when they first come in, they look one way. You get them plopped up for one day in a tub when at 95, almost 100% humidity, and they look like a completely different animal. They're pooping regularly. They're digesting without a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
You can see it in their scales when they're dehydrated. The scales are really thin and they almost like taper and have like a little like at the tip,
Like
they
they're
curl
playing.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they curl up a little bit, but when they're like good, like they're shiny and is a little bit of a plump or a little dome to the scale itself when they're
Yeah.
really
yeah,
hydrated.
sometimes get that like little divot on the middle. Like I remember we took a picture. Me and like Vin took a picture and sent it to me with like a fresh import. It was the second we got her. Little scales, just like you were saying, tipped, and they look flaked, almost thin. Next day, they're completely different look. Perfect.
I just soaked an import for 48 hours.
There was a lot
In
of
your
those
incubator?
techniques. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No?
No, I put a heat pad on.
Oh, that's right. You put the heat
It
pad
holds
on.
about like 80, 82, something like that for the entire thing. And then I put a little terry cloth tied in a knot so they can escape it if they really want to, or so they can rest their head on it so they don't drown if they actually get tired, which is I think is not necessary, but they're
No,
dumb.
I
They're
always
dumb.
do
They'll
it.
kill
You'd be
themselves.
surprised. Yeah.
It will.
They'll find a way to die.
I've had a few people message me. They didn't put anything in the tub and they soaked it in too much water, and the animal did die.
Yeah.
I
So,
always throw like a cloth or a paper towel in, also, just to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of those old methods were a little crazy. Like the
yeah.
feeding techniques, you'd
Yeah.
get 3,000-gram chondros. The tail hanging, that was all the time. Prolapses, all the time. There was a lot of stuff that changed, luckily, I mean, to an extent.
It's come a long way, that's for sure. I mean,
Oh,
to
yeah,
the point where now people are finally getting the confidence to like go out and keep them because we're seeing more and more success stories than we are failures.
Yeah.
And at
I
least
think-
that goes from the keeping part, I'll say, right? Not so much the breeding part. There still seems to be, I think that there's many individuals out there that have the ticket, right? But as far as like, I don't think with chondros there's ever going to be a breeding book like you can with ball pythons on what to do and be successful.
Yeah.
It won't be for another 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, it'll be a while.
I don't want it
finding
to
out a
happen.
lot.
Yeah,
It's just not black and white. There's so many factors that go into it.
Yeah, we went over this, I think, last episode. There's so many different regions they're kept in that are influenced by the ambient temperature, humidity, whatever, seasonal changes outside. There's people keeping ambient. There's people keeping supplemental heat. There's people not night dropping every single night. There people are. It's just there's too many variables to write an actual book on it unless you had 40 different breeders involved, to be completely honest. And that it would be a Harry Potter book. It would be 600 pages.
I think you could do it. I think it could be done.
Yeah, but I don't think it would be limited to what was in the book. I don't think it ever will be.
Not for chondros.
The chondros, I think there's a lot of misconceptions, and we've gotten to the point with keeping too where I see a lot of stuff that's so overboard it's obscene to me. But I think the one thing with them, they're not as reliable as a lot of other species. That would be like the biggest kind of wild card in terms of writing a book. I think you definitely could do it. I think there's got to be more time behind it. You'd have to hatch out at least probably like 1,000 chondros at that point to really be able to write it. But
look how new the geckos are with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, honestly, they're not new though. I mean, the crested thing is, but the gecko thing existed already. I think there's a lot of things we do that we kind of ignore, but there's a lot of new stuff coming out too. Like cresteds are now safe, so you can feed those off on like people would do leopards, and you can get parasites from them, or you try an anole and it's like feeding. Good luck. You try it, or house gecko, even worse. But yeah, there's some developments that like new stuff like that, but I think a lot of the foundation that we need has all been laid already.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. The foundation's there, but it's like a law book. You're always going to have a yearly insert to put into that law book. There's always changes happening, so you'll always need a supplemental insert to, you know.
I think the most interesting stuff would be like the stuff from Natouche and whatnot, where you're getting like firsthand evidence as to what we've always speculated and
Yeah.
debated, and now we really can't anymore. I think it'll be some time. I think not yet though. Maybe like you said, 5-10 years. Someone could do it. Probably closer to 10.
How about the shot glass technique? Have you guys ever heard of my shot glass technique?
Yeah, I tried it with my one or actually it was my friend's clutch. I incubated for him, but the baby didn't end up making it. It had like a cleft lip or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
yeah,
haven't heard of that. No, I wasn't familiar with it. I don't
So,
know though.
like-
I'm curious.
super long story short, my first clutch, I lost a baby because it was tied in its umbilical, and I saw it doing that jerky motion like a quarter of the
Okay.
way out, and it couldn't get out. I said it'll never happen again. So with my second clutch, I saw that and thought it was doing that. I cut it open, and it wasn't tied up in the umbilical cord, but had a gigantic yolk sac. So I already had thought it out. I put shot glasses in my incubator, and then I put the baby, after I cut it out of the egg, in a shot glass as an artificial egg, and it's fine. It's in Texas.
That's pretty freaking interesting, honestly.
Yeah.
It's pretty
They-
cool.
They can't tip it over, and it's sterile.
No, it's
That's
pretty
smart.
cool, honestly. I
I
mean,
will. Yeah.
I know what you mean. I get paranoid once I start seeing. I think a baby's stuck in there. I don't like artificially incubating for a number of reasons, but once
Do you
that
also
happens,
do you also do maternal? Doesn't Vin do maternal?
yeah, I do maternal anytime I can. If the female, if she's gonna brood them and wrap up on them perfectly and close her head on like a hatch, I'm leaving them. Unless I see that there's a lot of slugs. Otherwise, she's staying on them. She's gonna
Let's
I
get.
want to do that.
So I wanted to get back on track. So both of yous lay boxes that you were originally taught by your mentors, and if you're not using that lay box anymore, what are you using?
Ed uses like a plastic tote. It's maybe like a foot long by like 8 inches wide, maybe 6 inches tall, and there's just a hole in the top. And I use that. I think I used that once, but all the other times I use like a half cork round with moss on the whole bottom of the cage, and they just go under the cork round and lay in there.
And which do you prefer?
Honestly, don't really care as long as as long as they lay the eggs and coil around them. But probably the nest box, just so I don't have to clean out all the moss at the bottom of the cage afterwards.
Okay. Kenny?
I also use bird nest boxes like Vin would. If I don't have enough or I need a random moment, I'll set up a tote, cut the front hole, and I use sphagnum moss in them.
When you said bird nest box, I thought you meant the little old school wooden ones with the little hinged lid.
No, I'm dead. Yeah.
That's what you're using.
Yeah, no, I could send you like females
Hell
with
yeah.
babies under her. She's ready to kill you, and she's in that wood box. I had a massive Biak that could fit in one, like a 6.5-foot girl, and she still did it.
That's
And
awesome.
they incubate the eggs in there maternally.
Yeah, I
cool.
love maternal because I feel like the babies come out much more ready to go. They fully absorb the yolk. You don't run into a lot of the issues you would with artificial. I only take them if you have I'm sure you guys have seen some females, they'll just scatter them. If you have perches in the enclosure, they'll do something dumb like that, or they just don't coil them. Like they lay around them, be super loosely like a rope. So then you have to pull them. When it's an instance like that, I pull them. At that point, I set them up in an incubator.
And do me a favor, while you're on the subject, you start Aiden finishes. Tell me what you do with your perches. When are you removing them, if you're removing them at all? For like the females ready to lay. Like when are you pulling perches? How long after the shed? If she's like escaping the heat and starting to stretch her legs, what are you doing?
I'm not pulling perches unless it's a snake that I know isn't going to go in a nest box. Or if I see that she's completely cruising the cage and I time it on a card that I see she's approaching the 3rd week after her post-ovulation shed, she's due, she's restless, then I'll pull the perches and set up the nest box on the floor. I mean, at that point, I set up the nest box as soon as they shed. But if she's going to not go in there, then I'll pull it if I know she's going to do something dumb. Or
Okay.
it starts getting too close. Like within a day or two, I see that she's not going in there or exploring it, then I pull it.
Okay. And before we finish with you, uh, any sort of smaller water bowl, pulling water bowl, any of those types of things when you know she's going to lay?
I don't pull the water bowl until they lay, honestly. I mean, I don't pull the water bowl at all. I've only ran into that with an issue with a female one of the first times I didn't pull the perches and it got close. That's kind of where learning that lesson came from. It got too close. She never explored a nest box or a spot. I had the water bowl in there. She was still cranking around the perches, and then she dumped a slug clutch.
Okay.
So that was where that came from. But usually I leave it in unless I know there's going to be a problem and I'm getting it really close.
Mm-hmm. All right. What about you, Aiden? What are you doing? Perch pulling and water
So
bowls?
basically the same as Kenny. Like, after shed, I'll put in a nest box, and normally the female will kind of go in and out of there after a week or two of it being in there. And usually, like once she goes in there once or twice, I'll just pull the perches out, and maybe like 10 days after she sheds, I'll pull the water bowl out.
Okay. And now, are you utilizing maternal incubation when it's available, when the female wants to do it, or are you 100%
No,
artificial?
I've never tried it. I want to, but I've always just pulled them immediately after she lays them, basically.
Okay. And you're
I'm still battling in my head if I'm gonna do that my first. Like if these chondros go and I get some eggs and she's wrapped around them, I kind of just
Do
want to
it.
see how it goes. I mean, it's something I've always wanted to do, and I know that 99% of the nightmares of killing clutches happens in artificial incubation.
Listen, I don't curse very much on this show, but look at Kenny's face when you guys are talking. He doesn't give a fuck. He literally is the type of guy I would never want to play poker against. Like, I'm done, bro. Did you just say it? Like, he's just like, yeah, do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's just giggling. Like, it's like no fucking
I
feelings.
want him to do it so bad, but everyone is always so reluctant that I want him to finish it and then I can try to pressure him to do it.
Kenny, you
As
bad motherfucker you are. You're a bad
never gonna
motherfucker,
be,
bro. You're hard
you
as
guys
hell.
aren't gonna stop doing it. You guys aren't gonna once you do it. I mean,
well, that was my mindset because I had I listened to a podcast that Ruza was on saying what he does, and I've again I've been looking into the chondros and breeding them for over a decade, right? I just got into them a year ago, and I've always had. I mean, Chuck, our first early conversations, right? Like you were trying to talk me out of the maternal incubation because I was dead set on it. Because I keep
control.
I keep ambient, right? So like my garage is 81, 84 degrees, and then during the cool time of the year it drops down to like 76, right? But I don't provide any additional heat source. So I'm thinking for me, like all I have to do is screw in a ceramic heat emitter, turn it on for 2 to 3 hours a day, and let them just lay and sit while that's over them, and then
see, the problem with as maternal's great and it's very simple and straightforward. Like you won't have an issue with it, but I would set up your enclosures where that not everything is allowed to be on that ambient schedule. Like if a female, is on eggs, I would definitely wouldn't let her be in those night temps because then she's going to start cooking more of her own energy and she's going to come out of that process much more depleted than she would if you keep her in like that 80 to 84 bracket. I always once females are on a clutch and I have them in the enclosure and she's going to do it, I leave it from about 82 to 84.
Okay.
And Humidity, keep it at like 90%.
Okay.
I mean, if you do that and you see she's on them nice and tight, and you know that there's good eggs in there, you'll definitely have babies on the 49th day. It's a good. It's
It's
good.
a good experience. I'm sure it feels amazing.
It's a bad thing if, like, I agree with Chuck where I want to have as much control over the situation as I can, and that when you try it that first time, you kind of have no control. So it's a scary thing to try until you finally do it.
I can make my next statement, but I know what fucking Lucas is gonna say.
Your temp gun?
Wait, can I get this? Fuck you, pal.
Dude, that thing's actually awesome. I love that.
I was gonna mess around earlier and say what's the most expensive piece of equipment that you have in your room besides your enclosure, so I could bring up Chuck's $700 temp gun.
No, that thing's awesome.
It really is. I told Chuck, so I just produced a clutch of retics, and the moment I start moving some of these retics and getting money in, I'm gonna buy one just so I can. We're gonna play laser tag on these episodes.
Dude, I'd be doing some weird stuff when I get bored at night.
For real.
You didn't hear my last episode? I get all friggin' drunk and I pee in my yard, and then I come inside and get it. And I try to find my pee again. I swear to God.
I feel that's gonna taper off into some other very odd situations. Like that, if that's the start of it, it's gonna branch off.
Exactly.
Listen, if my wife ever lets me use this during foreplay, listen, I got nothing left in life. I'm good, dude. Let me break out the thermal imaging camera during foreplay.
You can't. You gotta wait a little bit so you don't get everything too soon. You need a little anticipation because then you're gonna have this temp gun and be like, I've accomplished everything.
I want her. I want her to cut power to the house and hide at 1 a.m. while we have a babysitter, and I want to find her.
With the temp gun, she's in the back of the wall.
With the temp gun, yeah. She's leaving friggin' butt prints all over the walls and shit, like clues.
You're going to be seeing, little feet marks. You can't run. It's
exactly. Yep.
I'm going to really make sure I check this episode box, not suitable for children.
Listen.
Really making sure I'm doing that for this one. Oh, man.
Yep. Yeah, if she ever does that, my life's complete.
That's great. I love it. At least you're having a good time. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to get your money's worth for that thing.
You got to get some weird stuff going in general, and if you got one of those things, it's just an exception for really, really odd stuff.
Right. Let me ask you guys a question. We started jumping into egg box and maternal incubation versus not. Well, actually, let's finish that topic off, and then I want to go into feeding a little bit. But Chuck, were you asking them about the how you go about artificial incubation, what you use, substrate, medium, that stuff?
Yeah, I don't know how much that applies to Kenny. I'm sure he's done it before. But yeah, I'd love to hear what their artificial incubation techniques are, a quick rundown on equipment and temperatures and stuff and technique.
With artificial, I kind of incubate them. I got it from Vin, and it was also the same way I would do the Europlatus, where the eggs are in dry contact with a substrate that would be moss, and they're in a smaller container in a much larger tote that has a wet substrate. So that would be vermiculite, perlite, whatever you want to use. I personally use vermiculite, and I'll put those right in a larger incubator in the 86.5 degree range.
Okay. That is not old school. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, cooking them fast is how it's the best. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Any of the species that you can see that get cooked fast, like corn snakes, leaf-tail geckos like Aiden keeps, or even chondros, they come out smaller. They don't absorb as much of that heat because they're just cooking calories right away. Mm-hmm. I think it becomes a little problematic. I don't really want them to come out sooner or whatever it may be. When I cook them they might go a few days later, but that's fine. They'll absorb their yolk and they're a little bigger.
I know
I misspoke. I'm sorry to interrupt. I misspoke, by the way. That is not typical of
old school keeping and breeding.
keeping.
Yeah.
It typically was way higher. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. With your very nostalgic. I would consider both of you very nostalgic as far as a lot of your techniques because of your mentorships and stuff. But yeah, that 86.5 really actually kind of surprised me.
You know, I will say with the retics that, you know, when people would cook them at 89 to 90 degrees, they're incubating for 72, 75 days for the most part. And they're typically coming out, you know, smaller as well. And, I go the 86.5 to 87 and they go sometimes close to 90. And I'm going to say this, and I know a lot of chondro people, and what do I know, right? Because I haven't done it before. But with Indonesian python species in general, I guarantee you can have a great success hatch rate incubating at 84. It's just not going to take your 50 days to hatch. But slow and steady is always better than flirting that line of being over hot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I accidentally hatched a clutch close to 84. I didn't know my probes were completely off. It was that first clutch I ever had. So I had a lot of equipment that I really hadn't got the hone in, and it wasn't preferable. So they probably incubated like the upper 84 range, maybe 85, and they went almost like 60 days. But there was a lot of complications with that clutch. I had a lot of full-term dead neos. That could be for a ton of other reasons. And
different variables.
Yeah, it was only one time, so I can't really say whether or not it would work great. And it was also my first time as well, so there was probably a lot of mistakes and errors made on my part.
Did they run out of Yokan?
No. A lot of the eggs crashed
thing?
on the way. When I have those neos that go longer, I don't really ever have anything left in there, though. They kind of, some of them will sit in there quite some time, like a full day, even two, and just to absorb those yolk sacs. Yeah, I don't mind artificial. It just, I don't think it's preferable. Maternal, I always had better results with, like just the neonates in general too.
That's wild.
Just feeding. I mean, that also I'm gonna have to look at as I hatch more clutches and down the road. I'll make it like a good comparison.
What about you, Aiden?
So I incubate at 87 for the first 40 days, and then 85 on day 40 and onwards. And I incubate them over super wet perlite. With the normal plastic grid.
I was going to say they sim containers or something similar.
No, it's just like I don't know exactly what they are, but they're clear plastic, like a shoebox size, basically.
Can I get can we get real technical about it? Can I ask you some really, really specific questions?
Yeah.
He gets a hard off with these specific questions. I love it,
dude. Listen, this episode's we gotta have like the red X or an exclamation point or something on this one, because we're just getting a little loose on this one. So, okay, so your incubation container is, what is it? What's the box?
Let me grab one. It's right here.
Nice. He's pulling the chuck. He's grabbing the box. This is great.
Next is to just get naked and sit on the chair.
Every inside joke, every inside joke we've ever had on this podcast is happening on this episode, and it is just it's if no one listens or if everyone does, I'm happy with the way that this is turning out.
Okay, so that's a Sterilite container, and does it have a foam gasket on it?
Yeah, no gasket.
No gasket. So do you have ventilation holes on either side or all four sides?
I usually don't have any holes. I just like air it out as I need to. But last clutch I had 2 holes on each side of the long sides.
And literally all my questions are done now. I didn't know you didn't have fucking holes. Jesus.
I do air holes too. I forgot to include that.
You guys
always include air holes.
I knew putting you guys together on an episode would be different because you guys are so unique in the community. I don't think you understand that there's not another person like you two. You're both categorized in this slot that just has this super old school like rooting as far as your mentorship, but then you're so young, and then now you're taking old school, new school, and you're just like the shit that you guys are doing. Like I really am just I'm running out of questions because I can't feed off of like, oh, I know I'm gonna ask him how many holes do you have in the box, and you're like, none.
None.
So then, okay, now I'm done. Like,
So hold on.
I'm
But
the
you,
asshole sitting here with my, you know what, my
No,
hand.
I do air holes too. Yeah.
so I'm curious. Like you historically haven't used air holes. Do you mind pulling that box up again? It doesn't have a weather tight seal to it. So, but
Dude,
do you
it's
keep
incredible.
do you keep those latches closed?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's got to be minimal, right? Some airflow exchange that's happening, and then plus, how often are you like burping the box? You said as needed, but if you could throw out like a guess.
Usually in the first 40 days, it's like maybe once a week, sometimes less, sometimes more. But after day 40, I usually open it up once every day, or once every other day, maybe.
And how often do you have to wipe with that?
Normally not at all until like day 40, 45 and onward.
Wow. Yeah, see all this shit. I feel like I'm afraid, like I'm learning all over again. Like you're doing it so unique. Where did you learn, Aiden? Where did you learn how to incubate like this? Is this how Ed did it?
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure if Ed used holes in his boxes. I've never asked him that, but yeah,
What?
this is basically exactly how Ed incubated, except for the box.
So
I don't know what box.
he did drop to 85 after incubating to 80,
Yeah.
87 to day 40.
There's an old post on the old OG MVF that he made. I don't know when, probably like 15 years ago or something, but he talked about how he incubates. And I think that's why Patrick incubates the way he does, and Garrick as well. They all
And what
drop
about,
on day 40 to 85.
yeah, I mean, well, see, I'm kind of like, I feel like I don't know. I'm like ill prepared right now. Like these are none of the answers that I was expecting. And Kenny, like what's your temperatures again?
So it usually
86 and a half
starts at
all the way through?
86 and a half and then goes down. Even we drop it even like 86, 85. That
On what
once we
day?
know they're close, probably around Aiden's, probably like the 45th, 46th day, because they start generating heat and they start cooking. I mean, I think that's probably where you start to see a lot of those full-term dead neos is they just cooked too much in that end process and they didn't hatch, or something went wrong, they suffocate in the egg, whatever it may be. Yeah, I didn't want to finish that off before once he disappeared. Just kept going, but yeah.
Right. I think that oh wait, Chuck disappeared. Oh yeah, I see. He's frozen now on my end. So yeah, no, I think that when it comes to a female doing maternal incubation, they loosen and tighten those coils in order to let air exchange and let the temperatures fluctuate in a certain way. I'm assuming, I know that a lot of pythons will do that.
Honestly, they don't. They create their own little biosphere in that brood.
Right.
So they can regulate humidity, the heat,
to a
extraordinarily. Like Vin had a pair of wamina, like a female wamina that was on eggs in 90 plus degree temps, and she managed to keep the internal area where the eggs were cool enough where they hatched on the proper day. They hatched on the 49th day. And same thing has happened with females that had them in a cold time of year. They just create that perfect little kind of climate for those eggs. If they need to open the coils to let heat out, and
exactly,
or if it's getting too wet, they'll do so. But they know how to adjust perfectly.
And that's why I think dropping the temperature in artificial incubation is important, right? Because the mom is going to regulate the temperature of those eggs as they start to increase that heat, and they're basically they're growing at an accelerated speed. Typically, that lasts 2 weeks, and so a lot of that is causing that heat to that energy that's being burned off, and so
Yeah.
it makes sense why in artificial incubation we need to be dropping those temps, because I do hear a lot of fully colored chondros not hatching and being dead full term inside the egg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had that happen myself. Yeah. I I think there's a lot of stuff that like that 87 and a half or 87 straight cook isn't, it's not a big I don't really like the idea of it. I think it's too warm, and once they get to that point where they're at like the 45th day, they're at that end stage of incubation, with them burning off that energy and generating heat, it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier I wanted to get into feeding a little bit. Aiden, I'll start with you. Your feeding regimen, is that something that you got from Uncle Ed? Is that something that like you talked to him about, or is that something that you've kind of just like you started keeping in 2022, and so you've kind of gone with things that you research? And so what does feeding look like for you? What are you feeding? All that good stuff.
So I basically do everything the same as Ed, but which is I feed every 2 weeks for the adults. Usually an adult mice or mouse, which is what Ed does, but sometimes I'll give the females rats. Ed never did that.
Like a
Or
weaned
maybe
rat, a small rat,
um
rat
it
pup?
depends on the female, but most of them it's like a small rat.
Okay.
I think my biggest female is like 1,000 grams, but I'm not exactly sure. But she's much larger than my second biggest female. But the neos I feed every 7 days, sometimes 5 days when they're really fresh. But yeah, basically pretty normal stuff every 2 weeks. Or sometimes I'll do 3 weeks for males, and they don't eat in the winter half the time too. So
Okay.
yeah,
So I mean, another thing that kind of like you've changed a little bit. You're also introducing some rats into the diet.
yeah.
Kenny, what about for you? I mean, are you Vinruzo
So
to the T when it comes to feeding, or
It's almost to it's almost to a T with Vin, where it's all seasonal, and most of my animals, they have a very short window of the year where they're getting food, and the rest of the year they're getting nothing. Um, I do primarily mice, and the frequency comes from the time of year. I'll start them off slower, like every 2 weeks, and at the fastest rate, I'll have adults feeding every 5 days, right before or in that bracket before they're feeding. I mean, producing. With neonates, I feed neonates every 3 to 4 days. So they're getting probably 2 meals a week at least, unless they're in shed or whatever it may be. But neonates are getting 2 meals a week. They're kept a little warmer, like 84 to 86 sometimes in the back portion of that tub where the belly heat is. And they'll crank through food until about a year old, 2 years old, where I start to back them off every week to 2 weeks. And once they hit that sub-adult stage, they start getting cycled like an adult, just like my adult females. So no food. They're not getting any food from October to probably end of May, entering June.
geez, okay, so that's a long period.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because you got to think a female, if she's going to sit on eggs too, it ends up working out perfectly from copulation to if she sat on her eggs and they ended up hatching. A few weeks after, she'll have had her shed, and it's time to start getting fed again. About May is where I'll start trickling them, and they'll get food, little meals.
I'm assuming with maternal incubation, they are not breeding back to back years.
No, they are. Like
They can. Damn,
I've done.
Wow.
that's
I've done-
amazing.
I've done 3 years in a row.
Holy shit.
And that's basically
I'll do-
slow feeding starting May,
I'll
and then
do-
you're cutting it off in October. So May, June, July, August, September. That's
Yeah,
4 or 5 months.
I have some females that are even sooner, she's breeding by the first week of September, and I know
That's
her
nuts.
cycle, and she's like on a T, she ovulates by the second week of October, and yeah. But yeah,
Jeez.
I'll try it a fourth year in a row too.
Yeah.
They as long I mean they bounce back perfectly. Unless the only way I wouldn't do it is if she looked like she wasn't up to shape and she didn't look perfectly healthy. Like I primarily feed mice and I'll feed accordingly to them. One time a year they're in smaller meals. Right before that breeding season, they're getting larger, more frequent meals, and they're
Okay.
cranking through them. So
Jeez.
it kind of goes. They have a time of year in the wild where food is abundant and it's feast or famine, and it comes down to that. And I think the problem what some people will run into with this is if your chondros aren't hydrated enough or whatnot, you're going to see, oh, it prolapsed, or oh, this happens. You'll start running the issues as long as and that's why it's also in the summer when it's wet and humid. I don't feed animals once winter comes. It's getting drier, temps are going down. That's also one thing. Once temps start cooling at night, they don't get any food. So that's why I always tell people you shouldn't be feeding chondros if your temps are going down at night. Because you got to think, their digestive system's slowing at that point, so you're going to have a higher production of fat, and she's also going to slow down how fast it goes through. So now them defecating is delayed, them absorbing what they actually have is delayed, and that's where the benefit also comes from seasonal feeding. They get to use that wasteful energy or that excess energy over that time period and go back to a lean state, and we're back at it as a cycle.
Right. Yeah. That's extremely interesting. I was not expecting that answer, but I mean, it sounds like if the females are up for it and they're doing the whole 9 yards themselves, essentially with maternal incubation. Yeah, that was probably for me the most surprising thing that I learned or just kind of absorbed today. That's pretty impressive. I mean, these animals are resilient. We say that, about retics a lot, right? Retics are resilient. They love to injure themselves, but in general, reptiles are just they're meant for survival.
Especially pythons. Pythons are super primitive, and they've evolved perfectly. Like they can handle. I think that's why they do well with us, and that's why you see so many different people get random success. They're so durable and willing to breed that they'll breed in conditions that aren't optimal.
Right.
And I think that's where you start to see like frequency of success vary.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we could get into like eventually a book. Like if you had a method where you start breeding and it's like 9 out of 10 females are producing, I think that would be safe to say.
Yeah.
But
right.
That's something that
at least a guideline, right? I want to ask one more question before we kind of start to get into like wrap up and talk about your guys' social media. I'll pull up your guys' social media page here in a second as well. But one thing that I really want to just kind of hone in on, and then Chuck, if you got any more questions after, go for it. But I'm curious, and Aiden, we'll start with you. I know that both of you keep other species. I'm curious what goes into the process of when you walk into your reptile rooms and you start to go through your daily checks, all that kind of stuff. Where do your chondros line up in that? And do you guys follow any of the old school ways of documenting and keeping information and all of that good stuff that a lot of people might be using, like Husbandry Pro? Other people are just using a literally an index card. What are some things that you've taken from that perspective, and what are some things that you like with your mentors, and what are some things that you're doing new that's different?
You want to go, Kenny?
Yeah, I could go. So the first thing I always end up checking on adult chondros first. I go to neonates and younger animals after, and then I go to the rest of the collection. It just works out that way. I like the chondros the most, so I want to see them right away. And I end up keeping all my records, like everything from food, sheds, feeding schedule, egg laying, everything they do on index cards. I'm not doing the whole app thing. It's just preferred. I like it that way. I got that off in. It's just easy for me. That's kind of how I do it. I go about keeping track and records. I'll always go in there every day. Adults first, and then I work youngest animals, and then other species. Once they're done, then I'll write down on an index card, okay, here we go. She fed, she defecated, she shed, whatever it may be.
How about you, Aiden?
So in this room, there's only the Dumos monitors and Chondros. And I always look at the Chondros first. Normally the babies. I usually spray the babies every day, at least till they're like a year old. So I'll do that first. And then I kind of just look at everything else, clean what I have to. The Dumos monitors take, I don't know, it's a lot different work. I don't know if I would say it's more or less, but it's so much different than keeping the Chondros. But I keep the records on index cards too. I have some that go back to the early 2000s, like saying when an old female ate a pinky and stuff.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. All right. I guess just a way to wrap up here. First and foremost, appreciate both of you for coming on and just kind of talking about your experiences. I think the fact that both of you are this young with this much success with chondros, with a species that's actually notoriously or at least known to not be very easy to breed, and the fact that you guys have been doing this for a while is, it says that, like, just, I think that we're starting to get over some of the humps and these ideas that, they're impossible to breed when you guys, I don't want to take away the hard work and the research and the things that you guys have done, but you guys have also been able to, at a young age, show that success can happen. I guess
I'm sorry. I'm hearing your voice echo.
Yeah, I am too.
And mine.
Yeah, I'm hearing it in general. Hold on.
I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Kenny, is that you?
Yep, that's Kenny. Kenny's. Wait, no, it wasn't Kenny. Was it? Yep. Now, yeah, I muted Kenny. Now I don't hear it. Damn it, Kenny.
Here, I can mute the mic though while you're talking to kind of.
Oh, well, I was about to just ask you anyways, and both of you. I guess what are some of the messages that you want people to know out there in regards to just like keeping these animals, breeding animals, just kind of like this wrapped up sentiment when it comes to chondros?
I think patience is probably the most important thing with them, and actually taking the time to do the due diligence and studying and research that you need to do well with the species. Like, they're not a ball python or a leopard gecko. Like, they're going to take time, and you're not going to be able to flip them around like a ball python. So approach them knowing that you're going to need to be patient. If you do so, you'll probably have much more success than you would otherwise. You definitely would.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if I could say it better. Patience is like the thing you need most in this breeding chondros. Patience for every step of the way, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm learning myself as well.
Yeah.
Something's going to always happen. Like, something random's going to happen, and you'll learn from it eventually. You just have enough stuff where you're kind of hardened up and you know what to do.
Yeah, every time I failed, it was because I was rushing with these. Every time I've killed one, is because I cut corner.
Yeah. Any bad experience I had was like some greedy idea or rushing where I'm like, I want to make as many chondros as I can this year or whatever it may be. And I'm like, it always backfired.
Right.
So that's where I stand with them.
All right, fellas, before we go ahead and log off here, Kenny, I'm going to mute you so that I don't hear myself. But before we go ahead and log off here, and Kenny, I'm going to go ahead and I guess we'll start with you. So I'll just shut up here in a second. But do you mind giving people where they can find you while I pull up your Instagram page here?
Yeah, so on Instagram, Island Morelia is my one page with all my animals. I'm going to be making a Facebook page. It'll be the same thing, Island Morelia on Facebook. I just have to get all my pictures and everything on there and finally do it. So otherwise on Facebook until then, I'm under Kenny Richichi. You could always message me if you need. If you don't have Instagram, Instagram's just like the easiest way for me to get to any reptile people. I always see those messages right away.
Awesome. All right, Aiden, we'll end it with you here. Do you mind kind of just sharing off where people can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's the SoCal Biowak on Instagram, and Facebook, just Aiden Bradley. And that's basically it, just those two.
Awesome. I see you like going out herping a lot. That looks like a great time up in the mountains over there.
Yeah, I go herping a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Chuck, you got anything else before we kick them out to the back?
No, I just appreciate you guys, responding to my message to do this episode. And you guys are in a league of your own right now, really, in the community. Sorry, I'm sick, and I got congested all of a sudden. If I sound a little bit different now, but yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming on. I really do. Like, you guys are killing it, and yeah, at a young age, it's ridiculous. It really is.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, Kenny, you're still muted.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we all finally spoke. I had a good time because we've been messaging back and forth here and there for a while. So
yeah,
it's good to finally have a conversation.
Yeah. Likewise, fellas, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll catch up soon, okay?
Yeah. Have a great guys.
Nice
Thank
you guys.
Yep. Take care, guys.
All right, Chuck, for the sake of getting you nice and cozy in bed and resting, so Trump's not going to do the outro?
I can.
No, don't do it. Sit down. No, go grab it. Don't
be such a loser all your life. I'm fine. Everything's fine. We're going to win on Tuesday.
Just to appreciate you for getting the hookup, getting both those guys on. Had a blast having them on. And again, just kind of like I said at the beginning of the episode, in case you guys missed that, the TRL network, the Reptile Lounge Network, is going to be taking the month of December off for this year. The first time that we did that since we started. I think this is our third December total, and one that Chuck and I are sharing. But until the next episode in a couple weeks, we will see you guys then.
Y'all take care.